Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a 17-liter jug of acetic anhydride. It's manufactured by Aventor through its wholly owned subsidiary, J.T. Baker, in Mexico. This is an essential ingredient in producing heroin from poppies, from opium. In January of 2020, Bloomberg did an extensive investigation into the use of these precursors that are tightly controlled on an international basis to produce illicit drugs in Mexico, and particularly in this case, heroin. 92% of the heroin that is produced in Mexico comes to the United States. And over the last 10 years, more than 100,000 American citizens have died from heroin overdoses. This is an existential threat to our people and to our country. I would also point out that over the years, Congress has responded on a broad bipartisan basis to the opioid epidemic in this country. We passed a number of pieces of legislation which I have supported and I think have enjoyed broad bipartisan support. The way heroin figures into this picture is that prescription drugs or are classified as opioids, but so is heroin. And it's commonly known that when prescription drugs are not available, that heroin is a cheaper and more potent alternative for addicts. A single jug of acetic anhydride sells for $324. It's capable of producing 90,000 hits of heroin with a street value of $3.6 million. The reason why this is relevant to Ms. Gupta's nomination is she owns $14 million worth of Aventor stock. And it's a family business. Her father's the head of the corporation. But it's well known that Mexican authorities, as far back as 2010, have found jugs of acetic anhydride manufactured by Aventor at drug labs like this one depicted in Sinaloa, Mexico. It's commonly known among law enforcement officials that acetic anhydride, although it has some legitimate uses, is so dangerous that many countries simply ban the product entirely. You can't buy it in those countries. The International Narcotics Control Board, which is, as I understand, an arm of the United Nations, has been trying to regulate acetic anhydride's distribution because they know that it's essential to produce illicit drugs. Ms. Gupta was asked about her knowledge of the diversion of this precursor chemical manufactured by Aventor, and she said, well, I'm familiar with the allegations made against Aventor for selling this precursor drug in Mexico. Again, this chemical, is so tightly regulated here in the United States by the Drug Enforcement Administration. All sales are carefully identified and tracked to make sure it's not diverted for illegal drug manufacturing here. But Mexico has never, at least until 2018, taken any steps to regulate acetic anhydride. It can be bought online. It can be bought in a medical supply store. It is readily available. And it's conveniently packaged in this 17-liter jug that can be hidden in the trunk of a car. This is what the drug cartels have been using, at least since 2010, maybe earlier, to make the heroin that's taken more than 100,000 lives in the United States in the last 10 years. I agree with Ranking Member Grassley that Ms. Gupta has been misleading and deceptive in many of her answers to our questions on really important issues like qualified immunity, the death penalty, things like defund the police. But in the case of legalization of drugs, including drugs like heroin, she's frankly lied to each of you and the whole committee. Well, I asked her during her testimony, because I had read a piece that she had written in HuffPost in 2012, whether she supported the decriminalization of all drugs, not just marijuana. And she said, "No, Senator, I do not." That's a direct quote in answer to my questions. Senator Grassley asked follow-up questions for the record along those same lines. And she said, quote, "I have never advocated for decriminalization of all drugs, and I do not support the decriminalization of all drugs." Well, to me, the most important word in that quote is never. Because as you can see, it's simply a misrepresentation of what she said in 2012. It's not just about marijuana. She said all drugs, fentanyl, methamphetamine, heroin, prescription opioids, you name it. All drugs. And then she lied about it to you and me under oath. Ms. Gupta would not even concede that as a result of her ownership of about $14 million worth of shares in Aventor, when Senator Grassley asked whether she had personally profited from the sales of this precursor in Mexico, she would not even acknowledge that that would be possible. But of course, she has benefited from all of the sales, legitimate and illegitimate, by Aventor of the various products that they sell. In addition to lying to the committee under oath and her connection with this precursor chemical that's used for heroin production, we now have a nominee who's been nominated to the third highest office in the Department of Justice. As Senator Grassley pointed out, she will supervise the civil division of the Department of Justice. What has the Department of Justice done in response to the opioid epidemic over recent years? Well, it's sued a number of opioid manufacturers in this country for the mayhem, the death and destruction and misery that they've caused to the American people in each of our states and all across the country. I believe Ms. Gupta's deception, her lack of remorse, her dishonesty when it comes to answering straightforward questions of the committee disqualifies her for the office of Associate Attorney General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn.